And I'm going to bring this out in the book of Numbers, the 11th chapter, right? Because in the book of Exodus, chapter 1 through 7, it talks about not only how our people entered into the land of Egypt, but how we multiplied and how we waxed fat and how the Pharaoh had to do things to deal with us wisely. You know, Planned Parenthood, how they started to use ethnic cleansing, birth control, killing off all of the boys to curb our numbers. It talks about how we would get restless and how we would want to be treated better and how we would cry out, but the Most High put in the mind on Pharaoh not to allow us to become satisfied and fat in our land, but the Most High hardening Pharaoh's heart to set taskmasters over us, right? To put more burdens and affliction on us, right? But as we were brought out of ancient Egypt, you know, the Passover, you know, how as all of those plagues were released on ancient Egypt, how it passed over those Israelites that were appointed and predestined to be delivered out of ancient Egypt and to be brought into the promised land. But while they were in the wilderness, before they were brought into the promised land by Joshua and Caleb, Numbers the 11th chapter, which I'm about to go into, tells you the mentality of our people. That stubborn, revolting, gone, rebellious mentality that we have taken on in this place, right? This is Numbers, the 11th chapter. And I'm going to start with the first verse, right? I wasn't expecting to get into this, but this shows how people are stubborn, they're revolting, and they're gone, right? They're wise to do evil, but to do good, this is why we're out, right? What is good? They don't know. This is Numbers, the 11th chapter, and it reads, this is the children of Israel being delivered out of ancient Egypt, right? The Passover happening, those death angels passing over them, actually destroying Egypt, and us actually crossing the Red Sea and being brought into the wilderness. And as the children of Israel came into the wilderness, this is Numbers, the 11th chapter. Numbers. Jacob was fighting. And as our people went into the wilderness, this is an account, right? This is Numbers, the 11th chapter, and it reads, and when the people complained, it displeased the Lord. And the Lord heard it, and his anger was kindled. And the fire of the Lord burned among them, and consumed them that were in the uttermost part of the camp. And the people cried unto Moses. And when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire was quenched. And he called the name of the place Taberah, because the fire of the Lord burnt among them. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting. And the children of Israel also wept again, and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? We remember the fish. We remember the fish which ye did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. But now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all beside this manna before our eyes. So here it is, the children of Israel, although they had been redeemed and saved from their oppressors in ancient Egypt, they saw the deliverance while they were in the wilderness, separated from their former oppressors. Here it is, they started to murmur against Moses. You know, even though they were not subject unto the nations around about, they were not being assaulted. They were not being exploited. They were not being terrorized. They had totally forgot about all of that, but they were looking at what lied before them, which was not the abundance of food. It wasn't a smorgasbord that was available to these beasts of burden, you know, like as was in their former captivity in ancient Egypt. So they looked at what the Most High had provided them to eat, manna, right? As menial as it was, you know, they didn't have variety. So they started to do what? Become stubborn, become hard-hearted, right? Become rebellious, right? Once again, this is Numbers chapter 1 and verse 4. It said, and the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting, right? They felt a need for something. Here it is in their previous captivity, their captors, although they were wicked towards them, they didn't treat them right, they gave them a lot of amenities. They had food to their heart's desire. You know, similar to prison, if you're on a chain gang, they're gonna give you an abundance of food. Why? Because that's your fuel to work. The same as you'll give a donkey or an ox. You're gonna make sure you feed your beast well. Why? Because they are working on your behalf, right? They're gonna profit you. So as menial as food was to these rebellious, hard-headed niggas, as stubborn as they were, that was enough to keep them in that captivity, right? You're saying, come on, let's go, let's leave. And they're looking around at all of the comforts and they're saying, you can leave. This is why a lot of slave rebellions were not successful. Because just because one person was fed up with those conditions, he looks back and those men, they are actually going to the master to do what? Expose you, to sabotage the rebellion. Why? Because just because you're angry, just because you're not content, hey, they look around and in their mind's eye, they can't see anything better than their condition, their captivity. And this is exactly what Moses was dealing with. Stubborn Israelites, that although they were free, right, or they were going into their rest, right, and this is why they were purged out. This is why only 2 people, not even Moses, made it into the promised land. Only Joshua and Caleb for this reason. Their stubbornness, their rebellious, revolting, gone nature, right? One more time. Numbers 11 and 4 says, and the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting. And the children of Israel also wept again, and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers, and the melons, and the leeks, and the onions, and the garlic. But now our soul is dried away. There's nothing at all beside this manna before our eyes. And the manna was coriander seed, and the color thereof was the color of bdellium. And bdellium is kind of brown, like resin, frankincense, and myrrh. Because that's what frankincense and myrrh is, tree resin. But this was the color of, as the scriptures say, the manna. And the people went out and they gathered it, and they ground it in mills, and beat it in a mortar, and baked it in pans, and made cakes of it. And the taste thereof was the taste of fresh oil. Right? So, fresh oil, it really wasn't something that was delectable, something that was something that taste buds. Right? It was something, although it nourished them, it allowed them to go forward and not die. It was something that wasn't delectable, right? It was something that was bland, right? It says, and when the dew fell upon the camp in the night, the manna fell upon it. Then Moses heard the people weep throughout their families, every man in the door of his tent, and the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly. Moses also was displeased, right? So here it is, Moses. He saw their condition, while that wicked Pharaoh had them subdued under his foot, right? And here Moses saw the deliverance. He saw the plagues hit Egypt. He saw those death angels pass over their camp. He saw Pharaoh's army pursue them, and not want to let them go. He saw how the Most High intervened, right? Divine intervention to do what saved him. And now, here it is, he's hearing these murmuring, shit-talking niggas, right? He's hearing these backbiting, hard-headed niggas complaining, you know, as he stands outside of the tents. He hears them expressing their frustration and their grievances, right? Moving right along. And Moses said unto the Lord, wherefore hast thou afflicted thy servant? And wherefore have I not found favor in thy sight, that thou layest this burden of all this people upon me? Have I conceived all this people? Have I begotten them? That thou shouldest say unto me, carry them in my bosom, as a nursing father beareth the suckling child unto the land where thou swearest unto thy fathers. So here it is, Moses was getting frustrated, right? He said, am I their father? Am I their mother? You know, here it is, these people are going against me when I'm just a servant, right? Here it is. When should I have flesh to give unto all this people? For they weep unto me, saying, give us flesh that we may eat. So Moses knew he couldn't fill the order. These people are complaining, but it's nothing that I could do to satisfy their complaints. You know, they want all of the luxuries and the amenities. You know, they want the smorgasbord that they were afforded back in ancient Egypt. And he's saying, hey, I hear what they're saying. They want flesh. They want comfort. But hey, I don't have anything I could give them, right? He says, I am not able to bear all this people alone because it is too heavy for me, right? Just like in this time. It's nothing that we could do to satisfy these people other than give them this word. Give them the peace that comes with understanding through the hearing of this word, right? But if they have complaints about their financial situation, their housing situation, their family situation, their relationship, hey, that's above our strength. That's a little too heavy for us to tackle. But what we can do is point you to the remedy, right? Once again, and if thou deal thus with me, kill me, I pray thee, out of hand. And if I have found favor in thy sight, let me not see wretchedness. And the Lord said unto Moses, gather unto me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom thou knowest to be the elders of the people, and officers over them, and bring them into the tabernacle of the congregation, that they may stand there with thee. Right? So this is just an example in the scriptures of how our people take on the same persona, the same attributes that they exhibit today, the same characteristics that they exhibit today, the same personality that they show they have today, the same character flaws that they have today, is to denote that, hey, you are the Lord's people, a revolting, rebellious, and gone people, right? Hey, and the conclusion of this mixed multitude, this unruly, murmuring congregation that Moses was dealing with, they didn't make it to the promised land. They didn't make it into the land of Canaan, the land that is modern day Israel. Why? Because the Most High was displeased with them. But through Joshua and through Caleb, righteousness was able to be implemented on the other side and continued, right? Just like it says in Jeremiah, the 31st chapter, right? The Most High is going to do away with a majority of his people, but through his elect, through that great multitude that he does preserve, hey, this is how righteousness will be able to flourish. This is how we'll be able to be reestablished and repopulate the earth with Israelites, right? Through the loins of the righteous men and righteous women, right? Hey, and just like in ancient Egypt, when those Israelites were being afflicted, that's when they cry out to the Most High. You see what I'm saying? When the sun is shining and they have food, when they have a job, a key fob, the stores are open, the gas stations are still giving them fuel for their vehicles, they still have gainful employment. Hey, their hearts are far from the Most High. But it's one thing that gets our people to become very spiritual, right? This is the book of Hosea, chapter 5 and verse 15. And it reads, I will go and return to my place until they acknowledge their offense and seek my face. In their affliction, they will seek me early, right? In their affliction, right? When they start to be caught up in these adverse circumstances and situations. See what I'm saying? Nothing make Jake get religious when he burned the tip of his finger. You know, when Jake has a severe toothache, a tooth infection, they drop down on their knees and they start praying to whatever God they think will give them support. See what I'm saying? When Jake loses their job and they start being hit with all of these bills and eviction notices, right? When they start to lose status, when they start to lose control, right? In their affliction, they will seek me early, right? So the Most High, this is why he hardened Pharaoh's heart. When they were crying out because of their toilsome conditions as beasts of burden, the Most High, like, I'm the one that did that to you. So instead to turn to me, you're crying out and you're petitioning to, hey, can we go and just pray and get a little bit of rest? No, damn that. The Most High said no. He will put the mind on our oppressors to do what? Hey, add more oppression, more affliction, more suffering into us. Because the Most High wants us to turn back to him, right? I'm going to try to find the book where it says judgment must begin at the house of God. Let me see if I can find it. It might be 1 Peter, right? Let me see if I can find it. Judgment must begin at the house of God. Let me see if I can find it. Is it 1 Peter? All right, I believe it's 1 Peter. How you doing, sister? This is the book of 1 Peter. Judgment must begin at the house of God. The Most High has a controversy with his people. All right, I believe I can find it. 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 17. Hey, Kyle Halayim La Yahweh Wa Yahweh Shah. This is the book of 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 17. It says, for the time has come that judgment must begin at the house of God. And if it first began with us, what shall be the end of them that obey not the gospel of God? Right? Hey, the sinners of the Most High's people. That's who he has a controversy with. Let me bring this out one more time. This is the book of 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 17. It says, for the time has come that judgment must begin at the house of God. And if it first began at us, what shall be the end of them that obey not the gospel of God? Right? Hey, what's going to be the end of them? Weeping and gnashing of teeth. See what I'm saying? Let me see if I can quickly bring this out in the book of Amos. Right? Amos chapter 9 and verse 9. But hey, if judgment begin at the house of God in your mind's eye, you must picture the heathen standing before his people. Right? But he's going to jump over these other 17 nations that come out of Adam. He's going to jump over them and get us first. He's going to purge out the rebels among our people first. Those Israelites that are not moving according to thus says the Lord, that are being led by their own heart's lust, right, by their own belly, that's who he's going to take out of the way first. Right? This is the Abiyam now, and this is the enemy to our nation. Right? 1 Peter 4 and 17. Right? Amos 9 and 9, that's what I wanted to get next. This is the book of Amos, chapter 9 and verse 9. Amos chapter 9 and verse 9 reads, for lo, I will command and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations, like corn is sifted in a sieve. Yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth. Let me start over. Amos 99 reads, for lo, I will command and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations. So that lets you know that there was a scattering that took place, right? This is a mystery of the Gentiles. John 7 and 35, Ephesians 2 and 11, right? Romans 2 and 25, Matthew 18 and 15. It talks about a scattering that took place. Right? How the Lord's people have been totally perverted and subdued. Right? Ezekiel 36 and 17. You see what I'm saying? I just brought Amos 9 and 9 out. Right? Baruch 3 and 8. You know, in the curse of Deuteronomy 28 and verse 64. Lets you know that there was a scattering that took place. Isaiah 11 and 10, scattering. Ezekiel 11 and 16, scattering. Joel the 3rd chapter. It talks about the scattering that took place. Right? Jeremiah 30 and 11 talks about a scattering that took place. This is a part of our doctrine that they don't teach in the church. That, hey, salvation is for Israel. It's only been for Israel. And hey, those Gentiles that Paul was actually going to minister to were Israelites that had fallen away from the knowledge of who they truly were. And that have taken on the ways of the nations that are round about. Right? This is why we're out here right now. Because the majority of our people are in that Gentile state of mind. Right? They're not natural heathen, but they're honorary heathen. By their deeds and by their works. Right? Amos 9 and 9, once again. For lo, I will command and I will sift the house of Israel from among the nations. Like as corn is sifted in the sea. Yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth. All the sinners of my people shall die by the sword. We read that in 1 Peter 4 and 17. Judgment shall begin at the house of God. Right, here it is. All the sinners of my people shall die by the sword, which say, the evil shall not overtake, nor prevent us. Right? The evil shall not overtake, nor prevent us. Right? This is why the scriptures say, judgment must begin at the house of God. Right? This is why that judgment is going to come in many forms. You know, Agenda 2030. You know, the so-called white man, the elite of the nation of Esau, which is Amalek, they're rolling out a scheme called Agenda 2030, where they want to try to act as if they want to solve problems in the earth that has to deal with sexism, racism, joblessness, food, what is the word I'm looking for? You know, people that are deprived of having food, right? And that's a lie, right? They are trying to address weather issues. And ultimately what they want to do is bring about their one world government, right? Where they get the whole entire earth on one page, coming together with one consent, right? This is the so-called New World Order, right? Not a new world, but a new age, right? Of doing things a new way, right? In the scriptures, we have a doctrine that brings out Revelation 13 and 16, which is a time when you won't be able to buy, sell, or trade unless you take on a mark, right? And that mark, we know, is the word charagma, right? Which is an implantable incision, right? Which we know is the RFID microchip, the NFC chip in Europe. That's what they call it, near field communication, right? Right now, you have this technology implemented in all type of different applications. RFID microchips in people's keys, in their phones. People use them with plants, animals, pets, that's the word I wanted to use, so they can find them in the event that they are lost or stolen. They can find them using the RFID microchip. People are choosing to implant them right now. They are offering these implants at tattoo parlors, you know, where they're implanting these RFID microchips. Different jobs are using them with their employees so that they can have access into the building without using key cards or using access cards, the old way of doing things. Even when you have our debit and credit cards, they have a chip inside of them. You know, in these terminals that we actually make payments are called chip readers. And this vernacular wasn't even in our lexicon, you know, 10 years ago. Just to let you know how we are in the last days. And these end time prophecies are rolling out faster and faster. Why? Because the ultimate end is for the Most High to do what? destroyed this place with thermonuclear annihilation. Right? The Bible speaks of World War III. You know, America being destroyed for everything that is done, and not only against the Lord's people, but against him. Right? Hey, and with, like I said, Agenda 2030, this is what they're trying to accomplish within the next 7 years. Right? Today is July, I believe, the 9th of the year 2023. So these are agendas and schemes and plans that they're moving on very quickly. This is why Revelation 19:10 says, the spirit of who the world calls Jesus Christ, the spirit of Yahweh Shai, is the spirit of prophecy. We come out to do what? As watchmen, to warn our people. Warn our people according to what? Prophecy. To let them know, hey, it's only a matter of time before the Most High sends his sons back to not only redeem the elect of his people, but to bring that judgment on the heathen and 2/3 of his people. Right? This is why we want them to get right. Right? So let me jump into this prophecy that has to do with World War III. These prophecies that have to do with domestic instability. You know, what people will call civil war, race wars, famine, lack of bread, lack of safety. Right? We're going to bring on, like I started out, lamentations, mourning, and woe. This is what the scriptures foretell. This is what we warn our people about. This is why we tell them to fear the Lord. Because the Most High, hey, if he's against you, you're finished. Right? But if he's for you, hey, it said that in the book of Acts 5:38. Right? If the Most High be for you, if somebody try to fight against you, it's like fighting against the Most High himself. Right? And their arms are way too short to box with their creator. A power that's pure energy. Right? So I want to go into the book of Esdras to bring forth end time prophecy. This is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 15, and I'm going to begin with verse 17. And it reads, I'm going to start with 14. This is 2nd Esdras 15 and 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and the destruction draweth nigh. Right? It said that in Matthew 10 and 34. Think not that I came to bring peace on earth. Right? Who the world called Jesus Christ, he didn't come to bring peace on the earth, but rather a sword. He came to bring about division. Why? Because, hey, he's not getting any praise here, so he's here to break things up. Once again, 2nd Esdras chapter 15 and verse 14. And it reads, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall fight, one people shall stand up to fight against another, the sword in their hands. Once again, 2nd Esdras 15 and 14 reads, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up to fight against another people, and the sword in their hands. Right? This is what you call race war. Right? This is what it says in Isaiah 13 and 14. It said people are going to turn to their own people and return to their own land. Right? And when they return to their own land, hey, they're going to join together and fight against other people. Race wars. It says, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their action shall stand in their power. Right? This is what's going to happen before the so-called white man, through his Hegelian dialectic, brings forth order out of chaos. Right? He's already setting the conditions for things to be chaotic. Right? Economic instability, joblessness. The economists, they know the conditions that America is inevitably headed in. This place is circling the drain, and it's by design. Ultimately, it's by the Most High design, but the Most High is appointing men to do what? Throw a monkey wrench in its operation. And once this place becomes chaotic, once this place starts to overflow with blood, instability, that's when this so-called white man is going to come with his solution. He's going to come and restore order. But his order is going to be restored through what he called his new age order, his new world order, where men will be numbered, where you won't have mobility. The elite will have more control, right? This is the beginning of them implementing their new world order out of the chaos that is prophesied. You know, and I just touched on the sedition among men in 2nd Esdras, chapter 15 and verse 14, right? Let me bring this out in Revelations 2 and 10, right? Because the book of Revelations are visions that the Most High gave to John the Revelator while he was serving out captivity on the salt mine on the island of Patmos, right? This is Revelation chapter 2 and verse 10, and it reads, we start with 2 and 9. It says, I know thy works in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Verse 10 reads, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Right? The Most High said, fear none of those things which we shall suffer, because it's prophesied that the devil shall cast some of us into prison. Right? Let me bring this out. I believe it's Revelation 12 and 12. Right? This is why the elite, the synagogue of Satan, is going to move forward with their father's agenda. Right? It said that in John 8 and 44. It said, ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. Right? This is 2/3 of our people, and especially the Amalekites, the people that call themselves Jews. Right? The people that call themselves Jewish and Israeli. Right? Let me bring this out in the book of Revelation chapter 12 and verse 12, and it reads, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. Let me bring this out one more time. This is Revelation chapter 12 and verse 12. And it says, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. Right? This is why in Jeremiah, the 30th chapter and the 7th verse, there's a time called Jacob's trouble, where, hey, we're going to have to, through much tribulation, Acts 14 and 22, enter into the kingdom of heaven. Right? Let me bring that out in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 30 and verse 7. Right? This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 30 and verse 7, and it reads, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass that in that day, said the Lord of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and I will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. But they shall serve the Lord their power, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, said the Lord, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and shall be quiet, and none shall make him a prey. Listen to this. Jeremiah 30 and 11. For I am with thee, saith the Lord power, to save thee, though I will make a full end of all the nations whether I have scattered thee. Yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and I will not leave thee altogether unpunished. Right? But the point is, hey, Jacob's trouble. A time unlike any other time that we've been in captivity. We're going to have to endure that. This is Revelation 12 and 12 being made manifest and coming into fruition. The devil coming down with great wrath, because he knows that he's at the end of his rulership. Just like that little spoiled brat If he's playing basketball and everyone is picking up their teams and he doesn't get picked up, he want to take his ball and go home. He's not a good sport. If the so-called white man cannot rule, guess what? He'll hit that that red button and blow this whole thing up. If I can't have it, hey, I don't want anybody to have it. So he's going to come down with great wrath. And he's coming down on the children of Israel in particular, right? With his race wars, his New World Order, his RFID microchip, right? This is exactly how he's going to come down, knowing that he has but a short time, right? And that's called Jacob's trouble, right? Let me bring this out in the book of 2nd Esdras, all right? This is 2nd Esdras. I'm going to start with chapter 8 and verse 20. This is 2nd Esdras. I mean, come on, bro. Let me let this noise pollution go by and I'll go right back into it. This is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 8 and verse 50. And it reads, "For many great miseries shall be done to them that are in the latter time." I'm going to start over. This is 2nd Esdras, chapter 8 and verse 50. And it reads, "For many great miseries shall be done to them that are in the latter time, shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride. But understand thou for thyself, and seek out thy glory, for such as be like thee." Right? But it's letting you know right here, Jacob's trouble. 2nd Esdras chapter 8 and verse 50 says, "For many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter time shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride." Right? Pride goeth before destruction. Pride is hateful before the Most High. He resisted the proud. I brought that out last week. But this is why the Most High is going to put those adverse conditions on them. Why? Because they're great pride. They're going to have to face miseries. I quoted 2nd Esdras 9:9 earlier, death by pain. Right? The Most High has no use for a hard-headed, rebellious Israelite. Because we were created to do his will and his work. We were created to be his people. This is 2nd Esdras, chapter 16, and I'm going to start with verse 70. And it reads, "For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord." Right? Once again, this is 2nd Esdras, chapter 16, and verse 70. It reads, "For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon them that fear the Lord." Right? And that word insurrection, that's a violent uprising. Right? Revelation 12 and 12, them coming down with great wrath. Hey, that's the insurrection written of in the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 16 and verse 70. You know, this is Jacob's trouble. A time unlike every other time that we've been in captivity. Right? Let me bring this out in the book of Acts, chapter 14 and verse 22. I've been quoting this all day. This is the book of Acts. This is the book of Acts. That's right. This is Acts chapter 14 and verse 22. Acts 14 and 22 reads, "Confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith, and that we must through much tribulation enter into the kingdom of God." Right? Once again, Acts 14 and verse 22 reads, "Confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith, and that we through much tribulation enter into the kingdom of God." Right? This is 2nd Esdras 7 and 6. Right? It talks about that path to the kingdom, having water and fire on both sides. How we won't enter into the kingdom with our brother, but one man at a time. How the entrance of that kingdom being so narrow, you know, that can only one man enter at a time. Right? This is Jacob's trouble in the kingdom. Right? This is the so-called white man coming with his New World Order, attempting to do what? Subdue us, subjugate us, coming with great wrath because he has but a short time, lock us up, throw away the key and totally devour us. Hey, but the Most High knows better. And these prophecies say otherwise. right? These prophecies say we're going to come out victorious. All right, let me bring this out in the book of Matthew, chapter 24 and verse 21. All right, this is Matthew chapter 24 and verse 21, and it reads, "For then shall there be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor shall ever be." Once again, this is Matthew chapter 24, verse 21, and it reads, For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor shall ever be. And except those days be shortened, there shall be no flesh saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Say, the so-called white man will destroy the earth with his thermonuclear annihilation, with his intercontinental ballistic missile. Right? Except the Most High has this ministry of reconciliation and actually sends his son to intervene. Hey, this so-called white man is hell-bent on destroying all flesh, like it says in Matthew 24 and 21. Let me bring this out one more time. For then shall there be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor shall ever be. And except those days shall be shortened, there shall no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Hey, for the elect's sake, it said those days shall be shortened. This is why the Most High is going to send his son back as a redeeming force, right, for his elect. Hey, but also to bring back great judgment. And he's going to have assistance with the elect, who are his battle axe and his weapons of war. I always bring out Luke 19 and 27. Those that wish that I would not reign over them, bring them hither and slay them before me. Right? Jeremiah 28 and 8. I send out for many fishers, and they shall fish them. Then he's going to convert those fishers, those men that have the secrets, as pursuant to Amos 3 and 7. He's going to endow us with the ability to execute all the judgments written as hunters. Right? Let me bring this out in Revelation, the 13th chapter and the 16th verse. This is Revelation chapter 13 and verse 16, and it reads, And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell except he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Right? And we know, and it causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark. This is Jacob's trouble. Right? Revelation 12 and 12. This is the devil coming down with great wrath. And that word mark is the word charagma, where you will have to take an incision, which we know is the RFID microchip, where you won't be able to buy, sell, or trade unless you can be tracked. Your purchases can be tracked. Right? If you had to take an inoculation, they'll know where you got the inoculation, how much was administered, and when is the next time you will have to take another round. All of your documentation and records will be within that chip. Even a shot of cyanide to kill you, right? They'll be able to measure how much energy or emissions you exert, carbon dioxide. They'll be able to, like I said, play God by tracking your every move and controlling you, right? And this is an end time prophecy known as the mark of the beast. And we know what that mark is. You know, it's not a philosophy, it's not a council of men, it's not a doctrine, but rather this mark in the Hebrew, in the Greek, is the word charagma, right? So this is why we come out. You know, this is like I started off in Ezekiel 2 and 10. We're watching, and this is us getting the blood off of our hands. The Most High is going to call, and his sheep are going to hear his voice. Right? Let me bring this out as I do every week. In the book of Matthew. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24 and verse 14. As I do every week. Matthew 24 and 14 reads, And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Once again, this is Matthew chapter 24 and verse 14. It says, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Hey, John 15 and 22 says, we'll have no cloak for our sins. Why? Because the gospel, which is the good news, the gospel that we mentioned in 2 Corinthians 4 and 3, if this gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of 2/3 of our people, that they don't receive the knowledge of the truth, right? But it says, Matthew 24 and verse 14, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Why will this gospel be preached unto all nations? While the prophets across the four corners of the earth? Because the scattering took place, right? A scattering took place. Psalms 44 and 11, scattering. Isaiah 11 and 10, scattering. Ezekiel 11 and 16, scattering. Jeremiah 30 and 11, I brought that up, scattering. Joel the 3rd chapter, scattering. Baruch 3 and 8, scattering. Ezekiel 36 and 17, scattering. Amos 9 and 9, scattering. Deuteronomy 28 and 64, scattering. This is why the gospel will be preached unto all nations, because the Lord's people are scattered in every nation, speaking every tongue, worshiping up under every idol. And this is why the Lord's elect are going to come out from among those heathen. And the Most High is going to do away with those nations that he scattered us amongst. But to those elect that are scattered among those nations, Amos 9 and 9, he's going to sift us. Jeremiah 30 and 11. He's going to make a full end of the nations where we've been scattered. But he's not going to make a full end of the people that he scattered, the elect. This is why John chapter 15 and verse 22 says, hey, you're being marked. You're not going to have a cloak for your sin. You're not going to be able to use ignorance as an excuse. All right, so I'm going to end by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Requah Kadash. It feels so good to come out here and do the work. It feels so good to do as we are commanded. There's no better feeling on this side than to do the things that are pleasing to the Most High. You know, and to the brothers that are listening, thank you for your patience. And you brothers continue to do the work of prophets, apostles, bishops, and evangelists. Right? Do your best to make your calling and election sure. Keep up the honorable work. Hey, we're one step closer to being redeemed. We're almost out of here. Hey, I'd like to end by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Requah Kadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that do teach and rule well. Many blessings to you brothers that are laboring in truth, faith, and sincerity, doing your best to make your calling and election sure. Once again, I can keep up the honorable work. Don't faint, lock in. Shalom.